Hey, my spookies, before the show starts, a quick update on my dog Chicano's cancer fight. Things are looking good. The scans came back and the oncologist said he's where she wants him to be. And that makes me so happy. He's also feeling pretty good so far, so thank you to everybody who's helped us raise over $3,000 towards the veterinary bills. If you want to help us, we'd really appreciate it. Go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Help My Dog. Any amount is appreciated. But now, it's time for the show. If you're a certain age, then malls were a respite of fun and friends, but there's always been a sense that something more is going on. What happens when the stores close and the lights fade down? Tonight we're going to find out just that.
What's that? You want to be scared? Come with me. You will experience tales of horror, ghosts, and death. It is not recommended for the weak at heart. Listen in the dark. It's more fun that way. This is Weekly Spooky.
Hey, my spookies. It's Wednesday, and you know what that means. It's time for a little spooky in your weekly. I'm your host and narrator, Enrique Couto, and tonight we have a pretty creepy one. But before we get to that, I want to remind you all that we here at Weekly Spooky have been very busy. We just released a television series. That's right, a horror anthology show called Found Footage The Series has dropped on Tubi. Myself and Weekly Spooky collaborators Dan Wilder, Shane Migliavacca, Joe Salmo, and Tim Castle all worked together to bring you 8 episodes of fear caught on tape. So make sure you head over to tubitv.com, that's TUBITV.com, and watch it. It's completely free, and it'll bring a little extra spooky to your weekly. And to those who've already checked it out and reviewed it, thank you so much. And speaking of reviews, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast on your favorite podcasting app, and while you're at it, why not leave us a 5-star rating, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or iHeartMedia, among many others. It really does help, and if you want to help the show in a direct way, you can join us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You get bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and a whole lot more. Just go to weeklyspooky.com and click on Patreon. But now, my friends, I think it's about time we head to the mall. I don't feel like doing any shopping, but I do feel like doing something scary. This is a fun one, so get ready, because we're headed to the Galleria after these quick words from our sponsors. A Night at the Galleria by Rob Fields. Esme Harker stood outside the Galleria enjoying the many lights that illuminated it. She couldn't wait to go inside, but she was waiting for someone. As she sat on the bench just outside the main entrance, she looked through the doors and saw the outsides of some of the nearby shops. To her, there was always so much life inside the Galleria. She had only been there on a few select occasions, but she remembered how it had lifted her heart and soul each time. Soon, she saw Theodore Holloway walking towards her. When he finally reached her, he sat down beside her. "I'm terribly sorry for us having to meet here, Esme," he said. "I wish I could have been able to bring you here in style, but none of the limo services would consider renting to a 12-year-old. He took her hand. You deserve so much better than us meeting here. Like this. Esme smiled. It's quite all right, Theodore. You know, you don't always have to try so hard. All you really had to do was suggest we come here. She gestured to the mall itself. Shall we go in? Delighted! Theodore stood up, then helped Esme to her feet. Esme's eyes brightened as Theodore led her closer and closer to the main doors. Soon he was opening one of them for her. After you, he said. Esme entered and felt her excitement rising as she gazed upon the bright lights of the many stores and entertainment venues that filled the Galleria. She could see some of the food court stands on the second floor. I don't get it, Esme. How come you don't come in here on your own? Theodore asked. There's nothing keeping you from doing that, you know. You can come here anytime you wish. I know I can, Theodore. She glanced at him. It's just not the same without you here. This is our special place. We've had so much fun and excitement here, you and I. I wouldn't feel right coming in here without you. You introduced me to the Galleria, you know? Theodore shrugged. Well, Esme, we have to do something to enrich our lives. After all, there aren't too many places available for a 12-year-old boy and a 13-year-old girl. That's not true, Esme replied. We have a whole world. Right here. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters to me. Oh, I am, Theodore. Believe me when I say that I am. The two of them continued walking around the Galleria and taking in more of the sights. Theodore could see the sparkle in Esme's eyes. It pleased him to know that Esme was pleased. However, the time seemed to go by faster than they realized. They had entered the Galleria at around 7 p.m. Now it was nearing 9 p.m. Closing time. The two of them sat on a bench near one of the big anchor department stores. Theodore saw that Esme looked a little sad. You all right? He asked her. She sighed and turned to face him. It seems like we just arrived, Theodore. I know we can always come here whenever we want to, but tonight was special and just so much fun. I really don't want to go. Theodore gave her a gentle smile. I know you appreciate this place so much that we mainly keep it for our special date nights. I never knew it held such a special place in your heart. She smiled a little. When you first brought me here, I was amazed by its beauty. It's a beautiful work of art. I want to stay a little longer. Then Theodore suddenly had an idea. Why don't we just spend the night here? Esme's eyes and mouth opened wide. What? You heard me. Why don't we just spend the night here? Then Theodore explained. We can have the whole mall to ourselves. We can do whatever we want here and without care. No one would even know that we were ever here. Date night doesn't have to end, Esme. Esme didn't need any further convincing and nodded her head. Theodore took her hand and they both got up. They managed to get out of sight of the security guards that patrolled the mall. They hid in the big department store nearby and waited until the lights were turned off and the gate was down. Theodore and Esme came out of their hiding places. Then Esme asked, How will we ever get out into the mall itself if we're locked in this one store? Theodore grinned and produced Keys to the Kingdom. Esme's eyes and mouth opened wide again. Where did you get those? From the security guard's office, when we were on our way here to hide, Theodore answered. Wow, you're pretty sneaky, Esme complimented. Anything to keep you pleased, Esme. Esme gave him a gentle hug. Then Theodore unlocked the gate. When they were on the other side, Theodore locked the gate back up. From there, they started walking around on the second floor. Sorry, Esme, I know the bright lights and the crowds of people aren't here now, but... It's okay, Theodore. The Galleria is still a beautiful place. Even darkened as it is, we'll be just fine here. So, now that we've got the whole place to ourselves, what would you like to do first? Theodore asked. Esme turned to face him, stopping them in their tracks. You have the keys to all the stores, right? Right. Esme smiled from ear to ear. We've got the entire Galleria to ourselves now. I think the real question is, what wouldn't we want to do? Theodore smiled at knowing that Esme was again pleased. The two of them ran together throughout the mall. Whenever they came by a store that either of them wanted to go into, Theodore would locate the key and unlock the gate. They went into anything from clothing stores to entertainment stores to even a teddy bear shop. As Esme was relishing the plush new stuffed animal that Theodore had picked out for her, they came across a video game arcade. "I can't believe these are even still around with all those consoles people have in their homes," Theodore said. Esme laughed a little. "If you want to go in and play the games, open it up, and let's play." Once Theodore found the key, he unlocked the gate, and in they went. They turned on all of the games and started playing one right after another. Every now and then Theodore would look over his shoulder to make sure that no security guards were approaching. None did. They got to play all of the games they wanted to play. When they finished, they turned off the games, and Theodore locked the arcade back up. Before long, the two of them were in the food court and drinking frozen soft drinks at a cookie stand. Then Theodore looked to see if any security guards were around. When he still didn't see any, he noticed something else and tapped Esme's shoulder. "You want to take in a movie?" he asked her. Her eyes sparkled. "I would love to." So they went to the mall's cinema. They sat through a romantic drama while eating buttery popcorn and drinking frozen sodas. They had no problem getting through the movie. Again, Theodore smiled and felt high spirits. Whenever Esme was pleased, he was pleased. After the movie, the two of them went back into the big department store where they had waited until the Galleria was well closed. This time, both of them tried on different clothes. When they were dressed, they would present themselves to each other. Theodore laughed whenever Esme laughed. He loved to see her happy and laughing. They changed into different outfits and came out of their dressing rooms again. "You should keep that dress," Theodore told her. "It makes you look like a princess." Esme did a curtsy for him. "Thank you, kind sir, and perhaps you should keep your suit. You would certainly compliment me in it." Theodore bowed to her. "You're too kind, my lady." After a while, the two of them were in the bedding department and lying on beds across from each other. As they both looked up at the ceiling, Esme said to Theodore, "Thank you for tonight. This was so much fun." "I know it." Then Theodore sat up. Esme noticed and also sat up. "Is something wrong?" "Doesn't it strike you odd that we haven't seen a single security guard since the mall closed?" he replied. "You'd think they'd be making regular rounds." Esme looked serious. "Why, yes, you're right. We can go and see where they are." He nodded once. "Thank you for humoring me." She smiled. "Well, you certainly humor me." They got off the beds and exited back into the main mall itself. Theodore knew where the security office was located and led Esme there. When they were close enough, they slowed down. Cautiously, they walked until they heard a voice. "Yeah, it took a while, but I finally got the other guards out of the way," they heard a man say. They peeked in and saw a tall man dressed in a security guard uniform talking on a smartphone. "Just get over here," the man snapped. "I'll let you both in through the loading docks. Then we can make our way to the main office on the 3rd floor and get what we came for." Esme and Theodore looked at each other briefly. Then they returned their attention back to the guard. 10 minutes? The guard asked. "Don't be late. We planned this for far too long to let things go wrong." The kids quickly turned and scurried out of the corridor. They moved behind a kiosk and sat. "You were right to wonder, Theodore," Esme said. "No wonder there weren't any guards around. That other one must have done something to them. As big of a place as the Galleria is, they're not just going to have one security guard here. Well, what are we going to do?" Theodore took her hand. "It's going to be okay. He's not going to be after us." "Not unless he sees us," Esme corrected him. "And remember, he's got friends coming. We've got to find those other guards. We've got to save this beautiful mall." At first, Theodore wanted to tell her that this incident wasn't their problem. However, Esme had spoken. Once more, he wanted to please her. "All right, but we need to be careful." Esme nodded. "You have an idea?" Theodore thought for a moment. There could be a number of places where the other guards might be held at. Then he snapped his fingers and pointed to a nearby electronics store. "We need to go in here first." "Let's go." They got up and went to the gate. Theodore unlocked it and they went in. It didn't take long for Theodore to find what he was looking for. "Here we are." Esme gasped with delight when he pulled a set of walkie-talkies off the shelf. "I'll get some batteries." Once the radios were set up and tested, they left the store and split up. The plan was for Theodore to keep an eye on the loading docks while Esme looked for the guards. Theodore told her where she might look. They would keep in contact with their walkie-talkies. Theodore crept into the loading docks and saw the bent security guard waiting impatiently. It wasn't long before he heard the squealing halt of a vehicle just outside. The guard raised one of the loading dock doors and allowed 2 other men to come in. "It's about time you idiots got here," the guard snapped and started lowering the door back down. "Hey, traffic's bad for a Friday night," the first guy replied. The second guy held up a large duffel bag. "We got the stuff." "Good, let's check on the other guards before we get started," the bent guard suggested. Theodore followed them stealthily as they walked over to the far end of the loading docks. The bent guard opened what appeared to be a storage room door. Theodore gasped to himself when he saw the other guards inside. Tied, gagged, and unconscious. He went to a safe distance and radioed Esme. "The guards are down here, in the loading docks," he said quietly. "That guard has 2 more men with him now." "I'm coming," Esme replied. The crooks looked as though they were ready to leave. Theodore would soon have plenty of time to get the trapped security guards. Then, an unexpected thing happened. One of the crooks pulled a flashlight out and turned it on. He ended up dropping it in the process. The light just happened to flash where Theodore was hiding. "Boss, look!" the crook who dropped the flashlight cried. "There's a kid in here!" He pointed to Theodore. "Get him!" the guard yelled. "Oh no!" Theodore shrieked as he shot out of his hiding place and took off running. Theodore ran out of the loading docks and eventually back out into the mall. He had all 3 crooks racing after him. Eventually, he made his way back up to the 2nd floor and to the food court. He quickly dived over the counter at the cookie stand and got out of sight. A few minutes later, "Where did that kid go?" he heard one of them mutter. "He's around here somewhere." That was the bent guard. "Well, he's got to be hiding in one of these stands," the third one stated. But Theodore's hiding place was short-lived when he heard Esme on his walkie-talkie. "Theodore, are you all right? Where are you?" Theodore didn't wait around. As soon as he popped up, the men were trying to grab for him. He quickly turned around and moved to the back. He was out the back entrance and into a corridor that led back to the main mall. He still had the men chasing after him. Theodore raised his walkie-talkie and told Esme where he was and what was going on. He told her where the other guards were. "Don't you worry about me. You just take care of those guards." "I'm not going to leave you, Theodore," Esme radioed back. "Never mind me. I'll be all right," he insisted. "Just get to those guards." He felt a hand grab him, causing him to lose his walkie-talkie. It fell over a railing and down to the 1st floor where Theodore could hear it shatter on impact. "Gotcha, kid." The guard wrapped his arms around Theodore and lifted him up. "No!" Theodore cried. But when Theodore came back down, his foot landed on the guard's foot. The guard cried out, inadvertently releasing him. Theodore took off running again. "Get him! Get him!" the guard yelled. Theodore had a bit more of a head start on them and ran back to the big department store. The gate was open enough to where he could slide underneath it. When he stopped sliding, he turned and moved the gate. He slammed it down and locked it with his keys. But his sense of safety would be very short-lived, as the guard produced his own set of the Kingdom keys. "Yeah, you better run, kid." Theodore turned and moved through the department store and soon came to the escalator. He hopped up onto the rail and slid down to the 1st floor. He turned and sprinted to the gate. When he reached it, he opened it and lifted it up. He ran to find Esme and make sure she and the other guards were okay. Suddenly, arms wrapped themselves around Theodore. "Got you!" The bent guard had snatched him up and was taking him down to the floor. The other 2 crooks were quick to assist. The guard mocked Theodore. "Yeah, you thought you were clever, huh? Didn't think we caught on to your little plan, huh?" "Let me go," Theodore shouted. The next thing he knew, he had his arms being handcuffed behind him. "Now we're going to take you back and leave you with the other guards." "Not sure how you got in here, kid," another crook said, "but you can be sure you ain't leaving anytime soon. You and the guards will all starve to death before anyone finds you." The bent guard spoke up again. "There's somebody else in here with him. He was on a walkie-talkie to someone." He grabbed Theodore's hair. "Who you with, kid? Speak up." Theodore wouldn't answer him. The guard persisted, but to no avail. The guard lifted him to his feet and pushed him in the direction of the loading docks. Theodore kept dragging his feet before the guard's helpers lifted him up and carried him. "We'll lock him up with the other guards. Then we do what we're here to do," the bent guard told the others. "We'll rob this place and get what's coming to us." "Why would you do this?" Theodore asked. "Why not?" the guard sneered. "You work as a security guard in a mall. You think you're gonna get any kind of good money? No way. You get it by learning the mall and knowing what places to hit. Plenty of stores here that sell expensive diamonds and jewelry. There's also the big safe in the owner's office on the 3rd floor where the payroll and probably other valuable things are kept. The security cameras are all off. All we gotta do is make our clean sweep, be out of here by morning, and nobody will be any wiser." Theodore continued to struggle, but the crooks had careful hold of him. Just then the crooks stopped when they saw a lone girl standing several feet ahead of them. She looked very angry. "Let go of him," Esme yelled at them. "Drop the boy and get the girl," the guard ordered them. "I'll keep the boy with me." The men obeyed their leader and moved to circle Esme, but Esme didn't seem the least bit intimidated. She looked from one man to the other. When the man on her left came at her, she leaped up and caught him in the chest with her foot to knock him on his back. When the second one tried to grab her, she turned around and pushed him. The guard couldn't believe his eyes when he saw the second man flew back into the nearby music store gate. He bounced off the gate and fell forward in a daze. Now Esme turned to the guard. "It's okay, Theodore. Do it." The guard heard the handcuffs snap. Suddenly, Theodore snatched the guard and lifted him up as he got back to his feet. "What the?" the guard yelled when he realized that Theodore was lifting him over his head. Esme approached them. "Are you all right, Theodore?" "I think so, yes." Esme gave the guard an angry scowl. Then she hit him on the forehead and knocked him unconscious. Later, the 3 men awoke and found themselves tied up in the loading docks. The first things they saw were Theodore and Esme. Only now, they were wearing what seemed like formal evening wear. Theodore wore a tux and Esme wore an evening gown. "I'm so glad you're awake," Esme told them. "What is this?" one of the robbers muttered. "This is a very special occasion that you get to be a part of," Esme said softly. Theodore turned to Esme. "I was planning to make you that steak dinner you've been wanting at that fancy restaurant. You know, I can still do that for you, darling." Esme smiled brightly. "You're always so sweet to me, my soulmate." "Soulmate?" the guard asked. "You're both just kids." Esme turned back to the guards. "That's right. Theodore is my soulmate. We've known each other since the Middle Ages." "Esme saved my life, you know," Theodore said. Esme explained how she and Theodore had known each other since they were children of 6 and 7 in Europe, back in 1348. When the Black Death came and was destroying half the population of Europe, Esme had become infected and was on her deathbed. "Our housekeeper was very kind to me as a child," Esme said. "She was wise and compassionate. She was also one of the undead. I didn't want to die, so she offered me immortality. All I would have to do is let her sire me, and I would die for just a short time. Months later, Theodore was about to be taken by the plague as well. He was a very close and dear friend to me, and I couldn't bear to lose him. I sired him myself, and saved his life." Esme and Theodore both smiled and showed their robbers their long, glistening fangs. Their eyes were also red now. "That's right. We're both vampires," Theodore said. "And you 3 ruined our anniversary date. Everything was supposed to be perfect for my beloved Esme. We came here to the Galleria to celebrate nearly 680 years together. You see, Esme gave me my life back when I was about to die of the Black Death back in 1348. I only want to give her her heart's desire. She doesn't ask for much, except to travel so we may see many different sights and places. And let me tell you, she really loves this mall. We don't get here much, but it really puts a smile on her face. And I love to see her smile." Esme blushed. "Oh, honey." Theodore took her hand. "I know this isn't the wonderful steak dinner I promised you for our celebration. It's still not too late for it." Esme licked her lips and fangs. "But I'm really thirsty, Theodore. You can make me that steak dinner when we return here for another special occasion. Right now, I want them for dinner, and I want you to join me." Theodore sighed. "And who am I to say no to you, Esme?" They both turned to the robbers. "Don't worry, we won't kill you," Esme promised. "You'll all wake up with a bad headache and be a few pints low." Theodore raised his finger. "And you'll likely be behind bars. The security cameras will have all the footage of you three admitting everything. Not to mention what the guards will say once we untie them and let them out, after we've eaten." "I turned off the cameras," the bent guard grumbled. "There's nothing to see." "When I got my keys, I turned them back on," Theodore corrected him. "It's always fun to be able to run around knowing that the cameras can't pick us up. Since we don't reflect in mirrors, we don't show up on cameras neither," Esme added. "And now, shall we dine, Theodore?" "Yes, my love. Let's enjoy our special anniversary dinner." The three robbers struggled and screamed as the two teen vampires closed in on them.
Kids these days, you just never know what they're up to. Well, I hope you enjoyed this week's story as much as I did, and I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good week. I hope you're finding yourself scared, but in all the right ways. And a friendly reminder, Found Footage the series is now available to stream on Tubi TV, whether on your Roku, Fire Stick, or favorite gaming console. It's completely free to watch, and it's my first dabbling in anthology television after 3 years of doing anthology podcasts. And don't worry, we have no intention of stopping. And if you want to make sure that we can bring the spooky week after week after week, well, the best way to do that is to support us on Patreon. We have over 90 backers, and I'd like to see us hit 100, so if you've been on the fence about joining, please go to weeklyspooky.com, click on Patreon, and see if you might be able to help us out. And speaking of which, I want to say an extra special thank you to our Patreon podcast boosters, folks who pay just a little bit more to hear their names at the end of the show. And they are Bobbletopia.com, where you can save 10% by using our code WeeklySpooky at checkout, Megan Hua, Julia Kirsch, Christopher Sullivan, Brent McCullough, Gino Lyon, Steve King, Karen Weemet, Jack Kerr, and Craig Cohen. And if you want to join that list of names, all you have to do is go to weeklyspooky.com, click on Patreon, and select any tier $15 or higher, and your name will be on every episode from then on. But now, my spookies, it's time for me to get to work on all the content we're going to be publishing in March and April. So, until next time, for myself, for our executive producer Rob Fields, our producer Dan Wilder, and our composer Ray Mattis, I will talk at you next time.
Thank you for listening. Make sure to find your way back next week. But for now, you are safe. Trust me.